All right. Good evening, everybody. I am going to start and call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, December 14th. The meeting's being called to order at 7:33. And again, this is the Avon Grove Charter School Strategic Planning Committee. I just want to kind of recap real quick from last month. Because Dwayne's not on yet, I'm going to skip the minute review and acceptance. But just again, I wanted to thank everybody who is on and able to participate and listen. This committee is a board subcommittee. We did a lot of introductions last month for new parents and new staff that are joining us. And really, this committee sort of is one that we get to talk about some exciting topics about the school. We look for some feedback from staff and from parents related to items like agenda item C tonight, the draft calendar for next year. So again, I appreciate everybody's participation and able to make time tonight. So we have 4 agenda items this evening for sort of information and discussion. We're going to go a little bit out of order and go down to item D, which is our federal programs review, which Jen Weaver is going to cover first. So Jen, you should be able to screen share, and I'll turn it over to you for that.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. So good evening, everyone. My name is Jen Weaver. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning and also the Federal Programs Coordinator. My job here tonight is to review some of the expenditures that we have to date in a couple of our federal programs. Donna, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're at close to like 35 different grants. Federal grants that we receive funding for. And like I said, I'm only going to touch upon a couple tonight because part of the requirements in a lot of the grants, the federal grants that we receive, is to elicit stakeholder feedback and get your input in a lot of these areas and how we spend money. So what I'm going to do first, so we typically meet twice a year to review some of our federal programs. We've done a lot more this year. A board meeting a couple months ago, I explained a lot of the ARP-ESSER money and some of this funding there and got some feedback at that time. But in terms of the titles, which are titles 1, 2, 3, and 4, we meet twice a year. In the spring is more of planning for the upcoming school year. And then in the fall, winter is kind of review of what we've spent to date. So that's where we are right now. But what I did want to do for those of you, because I know there's a handful of you that were part of this conversation in the spring of 21, where I asked for some input in titles 1, 2, and 4. And I just wanted to show you that a lot of your feedback was taken into consideration, and some of it we were able to use title money for to make it happen. In other cases, you'll see ARP-ESSER. That's the government we've received most recent, the federal money we've received most recently as a result of COVID. So if you look at the after-school tutoring and transportation, that's something that did come up in our meeting in spring from you guys. And we had hoped to start it in December. We ran into a couple of glitches with transportation, but I think we have it worked out and we'll be able to start as soon as we come back from winter break. And that will target after-school tutoring with our middle and into 9th grade math students. Community outreach was something that was important to a lot of people through our conversations in the spring. So we started some of these kindergarten events where Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Hendrickson go out to the local libraries in the community and they get to know incoming kindergarten students or potential students. So it's a nice way to get our name out there. So I know that's already in the work, actually already planned to continue in January as well. Another area of importance was the increasing the translation interpretation opportunities for non-English speaking families. And ARP-ESSER, again, one of the grants we received as a result of COVID, we were able to adopt talking points, which I know several of our staff has already been using. I know our principal's been using it so far, but it's an application that allows us to communicate with families that do not speak English. So we can communicate in English, it translates for us, and then parents can respond in their native language to us. And it's very seamless and easy to use. We've also increased our interpreter being available at our in-person events and conferences. And again, that's supported through our BESR. In addition, there was a lot of feedback in the spring on SEL, or social emotional learning PD, for staff. So I know Ryan's been working with her SEL committee on getting a long-range PD plan up and running in the in the summer of 2022 into the upcoming school year. So our BESR will support a lot of that. In addition, we have as around 25 staff members who are currently participating in an SEL PD based on a text called the Rooted Classroom. So it's been a nice interactive SEL PD for our staff that we asked for volunteers, and we had a large number, as you can see, across all divisions that wanted to participate. So funding from our BESR also supported that. And then another area was continuing virtual options for events. So I think you noticed, we had open houses, parent-teacher conferences most recently, and then meetings such as tonight that we've continued with that, which again is very low cost. So I appreciate that. And I think many of us do too, that we can continue things like that. So again, that's just a recap of some of the things that you gave feedback on in the spring when we talked about federal funding and how we could best use our federal funds. So in terms of this school year, we have titles 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we're talking about tonight, and you can see the allotment of money that we've received from the federal government as a result for this school year. So we have Title 1, which is academic achievement. 2 is supporting effective instruction. Title 3 supports our ELLs. And Title 4 is, I don't want to say like a catch-all, but it's very broad, as you can tell from the title. So it's student support and academic enrichment grants. So for those of you who are not familiar, Title I, which is the largest federally funded program, comes from the federal government, So what they do is they take our percentage of free and reduced lunch students, and that percentage, through a very complicated funding process, determines how much money we get every year to support students that are deemed Title I. And currently all of our Title I students are in the K-3 building, our ELC building. 30% free and reduced lunch is the amount school-wide of students who qualify. And that's what dictates our funding stream, Typically, Title I, the funds we do get, so you saw, is around $200,000, supports the teachers' salaries and benefits. So we have this school year 4 full-time Title I teachers at ELC. So their salaries and benefits, right? Pretty much all of that money right there. We do have a small allotment within that fund for parent-family engagement and then professional development specific to student or teachers who are working with Title I students. So as you can see to date, this is what we've spent our money on. There is also a homeless allocation, surprising to some, but we've had a large number of students this year who were identified as homeless. So we have funds that can come from Title I to support things such as transportation, supplies, books for school, if they're going on a field trip and the family can't afford it because they're homeless, then we can pay for things like that. So we've had an increased number of families that have qualified. Under Title II, this is predominantly professional development for teachers, principals, and other school leaders. Again, not as much money in Title II. And then you can see to date, we've spent a good portion of that money on our letters workshops. We're up to 5 cohorts right now, and each cohort of teachers is about 10 to 12. And they go through 7 workshops over the course of 2 years to increase their understanding of how the brain learns how to read. And in addition, because that requires teachers to be out of the classroom, Title II funding also covers the cost for substitutes while those teachers are in the letters workshops. We had some SEL, social emotional learning workshops with the principals this summer. Most recently this week, myself and our instructional coach has participated in the IU13 Educational Technology Conference, which not only talks about technology integration, but also math and ELA strategies that we're excited about and hoping to pass on to our staff. And then PA-ETAP and Comply is also funded by Title II. So PA-ETAP is basically our online portal where we keep all our teacher evaluations and walkthrough information. And Comply is the Act 48 reporting system that we use. So teachers have to learn and receive Act 48 credits as per their teaching certificate. So in order for us to keep track of that and submit their professional learning opportunities to the state in order to receive credit, we use the Comply portal. Lastly, Title IV, which again is very broad compared to Titles I and II. It's to support a well-rounded education and improve school conditions with things such as technology to promote student academic achievement. Again, a very small allotment compared to Title I, and to date, we've spent a lot of money on our PBIS supplies, so positive behavior support supplies for staff and students. We've also been able to cover some online courses here and there, either through during summer remediation through Edmentum, Study Island, AGCS, resources like that. Again, these are just to date what we've spent our money on in these titles. So with that being said, I don't know if you want to think for a minute, and I guess we're a small enough group, we could probably just have people unmute if they'd like to contribute. But in terms of Title II, the professional development for teachers, principals, and other school leaders, if you have any suggestions or feedback on what we could this school year spend our money on to support those particular groups of people, I'd love to hear it. Or you can put it in the chat if you don't feel like talking. And then in terms of Title IV, do you have any input on how we can enhance overall programming at AGCS for all students to support a well-rounded education? Yep. Question, the focus of Title II is professional development. And it's pretty broad as long as it pertains to teachers, principals, and other school leaders. PD specific to, Regina says specific for the arts. Yes. I'm going to take notes on your input here.
Star also said like specific content related professional development. And I think it's important to note that we have used this money in the past when we've sent teachers to like content specific or teaching strategy specific IU workshops and things like that.
Yeah, someone asked, can teachers request to attend specific trainings? Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of our school because I really can't think of many instances where we've turned people away, unless it's a workshop in Vegas. Something along those lines.
So Jess, I know that we've used this for advanced placement, professional development and things in the past too. So that's a lot where the Title II funding goes to cover those costs.
I believe Project Lead the Way in the past, that's a pretty hefty professional development cost has been supported by Title IV. Okay, so basically content specific PD, that's what I'm hearing. Anyone else? Bonnie said Title IV, I'd like seeing the provision of transportation for tutoring. Yes. Can we work on transportation for other things like clubs and sports? Yes, we just have to kind of to put things into context for you a little bit, and looking at the after school tutoring and working with the transportation department. I think it's roughly $500 a day for 2 buses to run. So again, we'd have to really think about concentrating our bus routes and who we're transporting if we're only looking at 2 buses or 1 bus a day. And then something we ran into with after school tutoring was with 2 buses running to Coatesville and I think Octorara 2 days a week. Again, $500 each day for those 2 buses. It was a 2.5-hour bus ride for those kids, which we don't want kids on the bus for 2.5 hours more than they need to. So that's something we're trying to work through. It might be a little different if we have more kids involved in things, but when you have smaller groups of kids to provide transportation, you're looking at long bus rides and a very large cost associated with it. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's much more challenging than I thought it would be. And then support diversity, equity, inclusion, focused professional development as well. So yes, I don't know if Ryan, you want to speak to that, but I know that's been talked about a lot as well.
Yeah, so part of our SEL, what we're looking at is how are we integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion through our equity action team, as well as our SEL committees and our PBIS committees, so that we're all focusing on the same goal. So this year it was that we're supporting 100% of students. So all of those different committees are supporting that overarching goal. So right now we're just starting to explore. We got a lot of really great feedback on that 100% goal. So how can we leverage that and support students and incorporate PD? So right now we're just in the process of getting feedback from all of our staff on where we are and what additional PD we need in all 3 of those areas, diversity, equity, inclusion, PBIS, and social emotional learning, to make a plan for next year. So that's a good point, Joe. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I don't want to take up too much more time, but if you think of anything else, feel free to reach out to me. You can keep putting ideas in the chat if something pops up. But I'll let Brian take over from here.
Wayne, I saw that you popped in. I don't know if you want to say anything.
The only thing I want to say is, yeah, I was looking at the wrong calendar. That was my problem. So I apologize. He copied an old entry to my other calendar. So thank you, Brian. Sorry about that.
No problem. So next on the agenda is sort of a point that we've been talking about in the high school that was just looking to put out there for additional discussion if needed. I know Miss Morris, I saw her here as well, and is a high school English teacher. So Miss Morris, I might call you out a little bit on this. But it's a conversation that's been occurring within our high school English department for a little while now, and it really revolves around the course titles, the nomenclature that we utilize for our high school English classes. Currently, our high school English classes are in 9th grade, it's literature and composition. 10th graders take world literature. 11th graders take American literature, and then 12th graders take British literature. So when we have been looking at that sort of sequencing with regards to sort of the narrow focus that course titling like world literature, American literature, and British literature provide, as well as what some of our other surrounding school districts have done it or currently have, we started to have a conversation about whether or not that was the sort of best way to go forward in our English department with this course titling and sequencing titling. the feedback from staff over time has been that, and it's particularly in World Lit, American Lit, and British literature, is that by creating course titles in the high school English department that is either geographic or genre specific, it's been very narrowing, and it also doesn't focus that a lot of writing occurs in these three classes. A simple example, and that it doesn't necessarily align well to our core curriculum resources. We utilize HMH's collections resources for our middle school and high school English courses. And that sort of core curriculum core curriculum resource is not really set up to a world literature, American literature, British literature sort of genre within the textbooks. So right now our English department is in their curriculum writing review year. And as we've been discussing, things somewhat seem out of place sometimes. Like I believe in ninth grade, and this is a simple example, they had in the past looked at Romeo and Juliet as a play. And the conversation is more of, is that more appropriate in the British literature class? And do these naming titles sort of narrow down what we are or should be covering in the English curriculum sequence from 9th through 12th grade? So what we've been talking about and proposing is a naming change proposal to something like Lit and Comp 1 through Lit and Comp 4, so that we can look at so it's not as narrow, that the teachers have more of an ability to do both historical novels and poems and really go through and better be supported with the core resources, as opposed to what they kind of have to do now. Ms. Morris, I don't know if you have anything to add, because I know that as a high school English teacher, you've been involved in these conversations with your peers. Not to call you out, sorry.
I think you did fantastic. I think really just the narrowing, like mine, since I'm ninth grade, is already just literature and composition. So when I'm pulling from outside of the textbook, I don't have to worry about a geographical, and it's really important, more like pushing modern diverse lit, which is harder for the older grades to do in the traditional like American British world lit. So just kind of opening up what we can teach in our classes, and then also, like you said, focusing on composition, and really our textbook just doesn't follow that path anymore. So yeah, good job.
So again, not necessarily a formal proposal yet coming, but just has been an ongoing discussion. So wanted to bring it to this board committee, because this would be something that I did look for as part of a board approval in the program of studies approval that would happen in either January or February. So any additional questions or feedback or thoughts? I know we have some parents here who may have high school students, that, just any general questions, so that we can bring it back to our discussion and of the proposal.
So Brian, I'll ask a question. I think it's fine. I just had so you'll still cover a lot of the core stuff that you've covered in the other titles. Just it could be moved around. Like you mentioned, Shakespeare and stuff.
So basically the main core, like larger text would still occur. So that doesn't mean just because we get rid of, say, 11th grade as American literature doesn't mean that the 11th grade teacher wouldn't focus primarily on American lit. It would just open up more. So you would still see like the classic, like Crucible in 11th grade, where 9th grade for me, it would still be Romeo and Juliet. And then British literature would probably still, even though it'd be called literature and composition 4, would probably still do your classic Hamlet. So it would still align with like the Common Core suggestions when it comes to like grade level text.
No, I think that's great. I think someone just commented also they like it. It does make sense. Great job.
All right. So next item on the agenda is the mobile app. So we are looking to launch our school's mobile app when we return from the holiday break. So I'm going to share my screen, and you should be able to see my cell phone. So if you're able to see that, can somebody just give me a thumbs up and
Yeah, we
you
can see it.
see it? Okay. So this is a sort of I'm going to say prototype, but it's a non-branded version of our application. When we would launch it, it would be all in our school colors and everything. So this application will be available to download for both the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. And when you basically open the app, our goal is really to increase our communication avenues and also be able to try to pull together some of our resources to make things a little bit easier to access for parents. So you can see in the top, the pictures that are going through are all of the top stories and news articles that are found on our main website page. So it brings them sort of to the forefront of the application, and we'll scroll through those top news articles. The application has two different sort of modes. The first one is it could just be a stock application on your phone, and it can give basic information and provide the ability for school-wide notifications and cross functionality between some applications that I'm going to show you, and give you access to things like the school calendar, our social media feeds, our COVID resources, and some other items that are pulled from our website. We're also going to be emailing out to all of our families unique usernames and passwords that they can utilize to log into the application. In this case, you'll actually see that I'm logged into the application as Jen Schmidt, who is our Power School admin, and we attached a fake student to her account. So you can log in and actually have it linked to your students, your AGCS students, and gain individual information related to your specific students, no matter how many there are. So when I'm logged in and my child here would be considered a test student, I can click on test student and I can get additional information for their upcoming assignments, their attendance, their cafeteria balance, their bus information. So this is again, general information that is available to you as a parent if you were to log into the application. Not necessarily replacing the parent portal app, but just an option to sort of start to pull together information into one place. Another nice thing is if you log into the application, anytime any mass email is sent out that was sent to either myself, in this case as Jennifer Schmidt, or sent to my student, test student 23, it shows up as a notification here. So I think a lot of times parents, we send out a lot of information and it can get lost in your email. This is actually sort of organizing all of the school emails that were sent to either the parent or the student. You can see I sent some test attendance messages there. Today, all of our parents would have received this health and safety update email. And that email is sort of stored in here in this application for you to be able to access later on. So it's a nice way to kind of bring together some of the messaging that's sent out. And then you can always go back to it. If you delete your email or something by accident, you're able to go back in here and see all of these notifications. The Wolfpack weeklies that go out every Sunday, you can go in here and access it and not have to worry about it being sort of within your email among everything else that might be being sent to your email. You can also access our news feed, and the news feed's really great because it brings together a lot of different pieces. So here you can see the news is sort of funneling together information on the calendar. This was the email. The health and safety plan update was an alerted email that got sent out today. You can see we have strategic planning. You can see a news article that's being pulled from the website that is about our reindeer food. This On Sunday, you can see the Wolfpack weeklies were put out. So it's sort of bringing together a bunch of different informational feeds into one area. You also have easy access to the school calendar, which you can turn on or off the different divisional calendars as well. So if I only have a student in the high school, I can turn on the sort of district Avon Grove Charter K through 12 calendar and the high school calendar and gain access to that pretty easily. I can see when the sporting games are going on, when winter break is. So it condenses the AGCS calendar for us. Some of the buttons in the application also redirect us to our website. So this would be, one of the most popular things our parents continue to ask about is lunch menus, right? So this would be, I need the lunch menu. I can go into the app, and access the lunch menu very quickly without having to go to the website and then try to figure out where it is on our website. Attendance takes us to the attendance web page. If you have the parent portal app also on your cell phone, you can go back and forth between the two. So I'm logged into my parent portal application as well on my phone for my test student, and you can link between the two. That's also what happens for Schoology. So if I'm in my AGCS mobile app and I want to go to Schoology, I can click on it and it will take me to the Schoology application that's also loaded on my phone, as well as School Cafe. If I have School Cafe on my phone, it will allow me to kind of toggle back and forth through it. If I don't have School Cafe on my phone, and I click that button, it'll prompt me do you want to install it? And so it'll take you to the App Store. It also gives you view-only access to our social media feeds if you want to go into it. If you're looking for the school store information for apparel, you can go and click on that. It also provides the ability for parents to access e-funds directly from their phone to pay any school-related fees they might have. So School Cafe would be, I need to add money to my child's lunch balance. This could be where you would go to pay your before and after school bill, or your athletics fees, or your technology fee, or anything else. You can now access this directly through the application and go in and pay those fees. So that is sort of the application in a nutshell. I guess what I was looking for with some teachers and parents here is we've loaded things like the news and the calendar and the lunch menus, access to the parent portal, our nurses information to get right to our nurses page. Is there anything that you would believe would be a good thing to add as a button into the application prior to the launch in January? Again, it's something we can always add things to, but we were trying to, one, not make it, massive, but pull together information that we thought parents would want to have access to quickly, as well as things that we had high click traffic on their on the website. Language. I don't know. That is a good question, Ms. McAllister, on whether or not this is language translatable. So I will reach out to Blackboard and ask that question. All right, letter day. Thank you, Ms. Dixon. I will see. Well, what I can do is even if I can't have it, if the user experience, the UI won't let me put it somewhere, I can always look to have a one that is a question, like what letter day is it? And they would click on it and it would just take us to that calendar of the website that could put us there. So the Ryan asked about submitting an attendance note right from the button. So one of the things that we found is that the application, the way the applications are set up, and some restrictions that Apple has, is that it won't let the iPhone won't let Blackboard connect directly to the native mail application. So I can't do like a attendance, and you click on attendance and it automatically opens like Apple Mail or the native mail client to draft an email. Athletics is on there, so we would do athletics, and then you can go over to the athletics page for information.
Hey, Brian.
Sure. Okay, so yep, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go finish.
All right, maybe PBIS rewards. And
Someone asked about Spirit Day. Bonnie did.
yep.
I was just going to
Something
ask.
about-
I love seeing Matt's messages every morning, or his daily announcements. But is there a way that we could put that on there that I didn't have to log into Schoology and then download a PDF, that we could just have them sort of like your news feed, like have daily announcements, so it's easier to access?
Yes, I can look at trying to do that as an announcement post through this or through the website, as opposed to posting it in Schoology. Good suggestions, everybody. I appreciate this. Anything else? If you do think of anything, please follow up via email as this sits and you think about it. And then when we launch, there will also be a button on here related to like feedback. So it'll be sort of like an open box that parents can submit feedback about the app so that we can improve its usability and functions, so that it doesn't just become something that people download and it just sits on their phone and never gets used. So appreciate the feedback tonight.
Brian, is there anything related to board docs or the board meetings or anything on there?
I can do board docs too.
Or links to watch the meetings? It's always good to have everyone watching.
Live links to board meetings. Another good idea. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda, and so the last one was about access to bus forms. I can redirect families to particular forms, but it would be opening like a PDF on their phone. So I don't know how useful that would be, when it wouldn't necessarily give them the ability to fill it out. But Nancy, we can talk about that, of how maybe the application could help with enrollment. We do have the AGCS YouTube button on there, but I do think it might be a good one to just do like a link to the board meetings, because that information will be in the calendar. So I'll do some more tweaking, but we're looking to launch this after the new year. I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, because this one's probably going to garner a little bit of conversation, and it is the first sort of proposed draft of the 2022-2023 calendar. So before we get started, I just want to go over a couple things. So just so that everyone's aware of some of the requirements and constraints that we have when we build our calendar. So as a charter, this is directly from the Pennsylvania School Code and the Charter School BECS. So this is the basically the law that we have to follow and ensure. States that every charter school must provide a minimum of 180 days of instruction, or 900 hours per instruction at the elementary level, or 990 hours per year of instruction at the secondary level, and that nothing in this clause shall preclude the use of computer and satellite linkages for delivering instruction to students. So when we're building a calendar, we always try to build a 180-day school calendar. We are given a little bit of flexibility. It's not something that we've only ever used it once, to my knowledge, was that we submitted to the state a school calendar that was less than 180 days, and we met our legal requirement through reporting on the hours. And that was because of a weird snow year, and we didn't want to extend for a day. I think we submitted 179 because we didn't want to extend a day and bring kids back on a Monday in June. And we just decided to submit for hours. So when you're looking at the calendar, that's some hours and constraints that we sit under. Last year and this year, we also, because we were in sort of the governor's state of emergency, we've utilized asynchronous instructional days, particularly for our parent-teacher conferences, as opposed to half days of school that we had used in the past. Right now, it's kind of up in the air, and we're unsure of whether or not after this school year, offering asynchronous instructional days would be permitted and still be allowed to count as a full day of school towards that 180. So we're still waiting on sort of clarification on that item. Some other things that we talk about and consider when building the calendar is sort of the precedence that is set when we set a calendar. So things like when we start the school year, are we having fall breaks? How long is spring break? What do conferences look like? When we make changes to the calendar, we oftentimes try to look at what is that change something that's going to be sustained over the next couple years. And I'll give an example. We used to have a week of spring break. Then we changed our calendar to only having off Thursday, Friday, and Monday. There were a number of reasons for that. It was better aligning to Avon Grove School District, which is the majority of our students come from. We were looking at the number of instructional days that our K-8 or 3 to 8 students were getting prior to the PSSA testing window. So when we were proposing that change, we looked a couple years in advance on what would our calendar look like if we made a change like that. And that's not something that you would say, let's go to a 3-day spring break one year and then go back to a full week the following. That's not sort of consistent and it's disruptive. We also look at when our federal accountability testing windows are from the Department of Education for our PSSAs and Keystone exams, as well as when our AP College Board testing schedule is. When we have to administer those tests sometimes impacts our calendar builds, as well as the end of the year. We have kind of always operated under we would like students out as early in June as possible, mainly for 2 reasons. One, there are a number of there's portions of both of our school buildings that are not air conditioned, as well as sort of at the end of the year and after the testing season, what we want to have quality instruction happen throughout the school year. So, the longer that we go into June, I think any teacher will attest the attention of students starts to wane as we get into the heat and the end and into June. We've also had a lot of conversations, and Mrs. Bishop has facilitated a lot of conversations about student and teacher mental health. I think last year and this year, we've been seeing more and more the need for breaks and for time to rejuvenate for adult mental health, for student mental health. And we've been talking again about, will we be able to utilize asynchronous learning days? Do we need additional in-service days for our teachers being built into the calendars to give them time to do all of the things we ask them to do? And not just from an in-service of professional development learning, but just teachers need time. And are we building that in, as well as the potential of adding in ongoing half days into our schedule for, again, teacher time and professional development. And that's a calendar model that if there's any parents out there that have looked at these types of things, Downingtown Area School District runs a calendar where they have once a month, either a half day or it's a 2-hour early dismissal where students are dismissed early, and then teachers have the afternoon for structured professional development or in-service activities. So those are some things that we talk about and try to consider when looking at the calendar. So this is our first draft. Again, there's still some questions that are out there, but wanted to share it with all of you tonight to get a little bit of feedback to bring back to the administrative committee before we look to either present and discuss at the January working session with the board, or bring it into February. So you should be able to see the calendar draft right now. Again, this is only a draft, so not set in stone. But I'll start back in August. So in August, we would be looking to start and go back to a pre-Labor Day start. We did a post-Labor Day start this year because we were looking to give more preparation time, both for school administration, the facilities department, as well as our teachers, and to hold those sort of micro back to school events but before school started. So we'd be looking to start school on August 29th, and our staff would return the previous week or the week prior to that if they're new staff for our typical 3 days of in-service. You'd have a 4-day Labor Day holiday, which is the same as previous years. We typically had an October in-service. What we did hear from Quest and from our staff this year is that going from Labor Day all the way to Thanksgiving without an additional day off has been tough. We did have October in-service. We did have November in-service this year, but those are days that are packed with teacher activities. So we looked at trying to bring, and we had done this in previous years where we sort of had a mini fall break for kids. So they had an extended 4-day weekend. The staff had a 3-day weekend, but then came back in for Tuesday as our October in-service. November 8th is an in-service off for Election Day. And then you'd be going into our Thanksgiving holiday. So right now on the calendar, I have half days of school on Monday and Tuesday, and then there would be parent-teacher conferences. Now that's an area that we're waiting on information on whether or not we would be able to potentially utilize asynchronous learning like we did this year, but that's still an outstanding question. Those half days, though, allow us to count the day as a day of school towards that 180-day requirement. So as long as it's a planned half day, we can count that as one of those full school days. You'd be going into Thanksgiving. So students would be here for Monday, Tuesday, half day, and then everybody would be off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for Thanksgiving. In December, we would have a half day on December 23rd. For everybody, next year is the difficult year related to the holiday break of when the Christmas holiday falls, where we don't get that much time off. So we would do a half day on the 23rd, be off the following week. And I included having off on Monday, January 2nd, to give an extra day of transition and an extra day in that break period. Many schools have policies out there where if the second falls on a Monday, that's also a contractual day off. For Martin Luther King Day, we have off, and we always have an in-service that is around that as the semester switch for our middle school and high school classes. You're then moving through February with having off for President's Day. In March, we would have, again, 2 half days on the 15th and 16th, which would be parent-teacher conferences, along with parent-teacher conferences and staff in-service on Friday the 17th. So the students would go 2 half days and then a 3-day weekend. And then with the theme of sort of mental health and needing time for rejuvenation, we added back into this calendar a full week off for spring break around the Easter holiday. It got rid of the in-service day on April 10th. That would have been sort of that Monday after Easter, and moved it back to a working day, but having off children and staff for that entire week. We did look at This is for the 22-23 school year. I did do mock draft calendars for 23-24 as well as 24-25, where we would be able to sustain a full week off of spring break over at least the next 2 subsequent school years, if that was a decision we wanted to make. And then you're really in a sprint to the finish, because you come back and we enter our testing windows, and then your last day of school would be Thursday, June 9th, or Thursday, June 8th, with the last staff day on Friday, June 9th. So we're still getting out within those first 2 weeks of June. Kristen, Mrs. Bishop wrote in the chat, and this was something I was going to loop back to. There was, as I had previously mentioned, the conversation about, again, teacher time and mental health. So she wanted me to, I will ask her question. It says she'd like feedback from the parents in the group on how you would feel about monthly half days if asynchronous instruction wasn't an option, to be able to give teachers more time for things that they needed to do, planning, preparation, and professional development. Are you concerned about childcare, or do you think parents value and understand the need for teachers to have time for grading and planning and professional development? So I'll stop. I'm going to turn off my mic and let either the parents jump on and answer Mrs. Bishop's questions about half days, or anybody to give additional feedback to what's visible on the screen.
Brian, just for clarity, how many parents do we have in the group?
I'm a parent.
Counting.
Do you have a feeling either way about half days?
I personally value the ability to give the teachers half days. It gives them time to be able to catch up on all the grading and anything they may need to do. And I think if it's on the school calendar, it gives the parents the ability to plan ahead. So I value it.
Thank you. Anybody else in the group?
Hi, Kristen.
I'll read a couple. Go ahead.
Sorry, Brian.
Go ahead.
Hi, Kristen. This is Kelly Eshelman. I'm a parent. I would agree. I mean, as long as I think if we manage the expectation of, the time off so that parents, we can plan accordingly, the more time, obviously, the better if they're going to be more frequent. But I certainly value that as well.
Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. Drew,
Brian,
I just read your comment.
Sorry, Kristen.
No, go ahead.
Thanks. As a teacher and parent, I would say I would definitely value the time. And I agree with what the others have said, that as long as we put these days on the calendar ahead of time and release the information as early as possible, that would certainly help, hopefully, to mitigate the challenges that others may find. My kiddos are older, so my high school kid can watch her younger sibling, which definitely helps with that. But I know not everyone's in that same situation for sure.
Ryan or Kristen, do you see these half days as, I'm going to just like the second Friday of every month? Are you going to set like something like that, or are you going to be random through it?
I think we could look at it either way. You could probably try to set a day like the second Wednesday or third Wednesday, things like that.
Yeah.
Or we can try to be strategic about it of what else is going on in the month. Like if you look at like November, like if you have an in-service on November 8th and you have Thanksgiving coming up, like you might want to be a little bit more strategic of what happened when it falls in November, as opposed to the second Wednesday, which would be, you'd have off on the 8th for election day and then come back for a half day. So you could probably do either or.
No, I like the second answer. I like the being strategic. And, giving, we could question the parents eventually and see if, does, and I'm just hypothetically, does Mondays or Fridays work better than a Wednesday? Because maybe they'll have a 3-day weekend or something. So that's a great thought.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
There were two questions sort of about impact, I think, of half days. So if it's a planned half day, it counts towards our requirement of 180 days or hours. It's not both. So we do have to submit reports to the Department of Ed related to our hours, and we're always over. We're 80, I think this year we're 80 or almost 90 hours over that 990 in our secondary school based on our calendar. And that has to do with the length of our school day. And so, by adding half days, it wouldn't necessarily mean you're not subtracting a half day from the 180 student days. It doesn't count as a half a day. It still counts as a full day of school. Bus transportation, we would just need to coordinate. So the school districts, the Pennsylvania School Code states that school districts have to provide transportation for the days and times in which the charter school is in session. So as long as we publish to them in our calendar when we have to send it to our sending districts in the spring, they would have to send transportation on those scheduled half days in the middle of the day.
My other question, just for the parents on the call from Campbellsville specifically, we're talking about extending the school day from 2:45 to 3:15, so an extra half hour. Not that we're going to need it for the 900 hours, high school's 990, but because dismissal right now at Campbellsville is 45 minutes long, and that is a long time to have dismissal. And so the extra time for what kids need right now is really important. Does anybody in the call think that will be an issue as far as parents feeling like adding that extra half hour is a big deal? I know
Kristen,
it makes
the only
sense
thing I
having
see with
school.
that, Kristen,
Yeah, go ahead.
the only thing I would see with that was like my granddaughter goes there and she rides back to Octorara. And the bus ride is a very long bus ride. If you extend it another half an hour, it means they're getting home even later.
Got it. Yeah. And I think, it would be interesting to me if I do extend the time, like some of the school districts are sending the buses later. So, even though they're done at 2:45, they might not get on the bus to 3:15. So maybe if we extend it later, it's actually a shorter time that they're on the bus. It really would depend on the district. But I appreciate that feedback.
So Kelly asked about, is there a way to start do post Labor Day? So when we've always been a pre-Labor Day start. Most of the schools in Chester County are pre-Labor Day starts. We did post-Labor Day start this year because of sort of COVID and planning and preparation. The difficult thing with looking at a post-Labor Day start goes back to if we started this calendar post-Labor Day, we would be needing to find 4 days of school because you'd be losing that Monday the 29th through Thursday, September 1st. So we would have to either extend the school year 4 more days, and then you're going into the 3rd week of June, which starts to get pretty hot, or then you're looking at sort of cherry picking off of breaks of you wouldn't have as many. We try to have in service a certain number with regards to our teacher agreements. You would be cutting down on spring break, and then that is a little bit harder to maintain as you get into other subsequent school years based on when Labor Day falls and some of the Christmas holiday break and the holiday breaks, as those get a little more extended, like the year when you have almost like 2 weeks off for the holiday break. That means you're going sort of later and later into June because you're losing those additional 4 days.
I have a quick comment about the January in-service day. So for Kemblesville, our trimester has already been done in December. And December is like a super crazy time with holiday show and things like that. So it's like we have break, we relax, and then we come back and we're like thrown back into the day with our plans and our copies. So like the 3rd would be a great time to have an in-service day for us to sort of get ourselves back into the new year and the new month and everything else versus the 17th, just in my opinion.
I was trying to move around and see who was just talking, just so I can note it.
That was
it
me.
Aaron?
Aaron, yes.
Aaron, okay.
Hey, Kristen, not that it impacts our schedule. Where is Avon landing for next year? Are they running late?
Avon Grove next year has another modified calendar because of their goal is to move into their new high school building in the fall. So this is the year when Avon Grove is going to be done prior to Memorial Day and going back next year after Labor Day, because they're looking for an extended summer for punch list items and move-in items into their high school. So our Avon Grove School District students would be going back prior to their peers in their district with that. But again, Avon Grove has always been a pre-Labor Day start. I think this is just a construction. It's been 3 years of construction related calendars for that district.
Yeah, and Dwayne, we try to stay in Avon Grove schedule, but I think with that construction schedule, it's been very difficult to do that. And again, the professional development need, that would be something that we would deviate from their calendar, but it's been wonky because of the construction.
No, I'm sorry. I misstated my question. Yes, I completely understand. I just didn't know if there was an update, how far behind they are.
No, there's not. No update yet.
All right. Sorry. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
No, that's okay.
Anyone else have questions? This is your time. This is why you're on this committee. You need to ask.
Yep, and I am taking notes to take this all back. I get
He gives detention too.
I put this in the chat as well. But as the teacher of a tested subject, so I have AP Calc, I do appreciate the extra time that we get by starting earlier and finishing earlier. It gives us, it might only be another week or so, but every day helps with that. Thinking AP Calc, Algebra 1, really any of the testing subjects, even going in the lower grades with the PSSAs, that extra time is appreciated.
Brian, it looks like, and I think you've got your answer. I think the half day is well supported.
All right, so we'll take the half day feedback as well as the calendar structure here back to our group for additional discussion before we bring things to the board. And then Bonnie just asked a question about virtual. We're sort of waiting on clarification on whether or not we would be able to continue to do virtual asynchronous learning as counted instructional days for next year. So if we get like a yes, that's permissible, we would come back to this and say, is that a learning modality that we want to deploy as part of our published calendar? So for example, the conference days before Thanksgiving. But we're just waiting on clarification. That's why I have those as half days right now, so that they're able to count as school days. And then if we pivot to asynchronous learning, an asynchronous learning proposal for those days, that would still be a school day, and it doesn't necessitate additional revisions to sort of like the start or end of the year.
Did you catch that comment from Daniel? I mean, I think the spring break is great too, having a full week, especially when you go into that. Those last couple of weeks are just a real stretch, especially with the testing. So I think giving everyone that week off.
There was one other one. Charity asked about virtual days only counting now due to COVID. So it's a complicated answer, but to a certain extent, yes. That we had published those asynchronous days ahead of time because of the declaration of emergency that was extended through the Department of Education for schools. There is some interpretation of the school code that you could get into, but I won't go down that road. But then I should also point out that we next year is our last year of our current FID day application, and we will resubmit. But then you're looking at any snow days up to 5 being able to be asynchronous FID days, so that we would not have to add snow days onto the end of the school year. And that information about what FID days were going to look like was sent out to families right after the Thanksgiving break here this year.
Hey, Brian, you saw something from Jess, and if there's nothing else, we'll finish up.
Yeah, Jess, we can get some feedback about the effectiveness of the days.
Is there any further questions? If not, I know you didn't do the meeting minutes. Did everyone get to review those from last month? Was there any concern, question, revisions?
No revisions. Thank you.
Oh,
Nope, I
hi,
went through
Donna.
them. They were
Thank
good.
you.
Hi, Dwayne.
All right, so those will be accepted. Next meeting is, we don't have to move it. So it's January 11th. Is that correct? Brian, is that right? The right thing? Just looking on my calendar.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, January 11th.
All right, so same time, same place. I will have the right link. I will use the right link. So thank you very much. If there's nothing else, Brian, we can wrap it up.
Great. Sounds good.
All right, great job,
Want to
Brian.
adjourn?